The long piece. The observation deck of Harmony Station offered the most beautiful view in human space. Dr. Sarah Chin pressed her palm against the transparent aluminum viewport, watching Earth rise over the moon's stark horizon. A blue marble wrapped in white clouds, eternal and peaceful. Behind her, the station hummed with quiet activity. Researchers comparing notes, children laughing in the education wing, the soft chime of the hydroponics bay announcing another successful harvest. "Mom, look." 8-year-old Maya tugged at Sarah's lab coat, pointing at a transport shuttle gliding past the window. "That's the one bringing Dad home, right?" Sarah smiled, checking her wrist display. "2 more hours, sweetheart. Why don't you finish your homework in the library?" Maya groaned but complied, her footsteps echoing down the corridor that connected the residential section to the station's educational facilities. Harmony Station housed 240 people, scientists, engineers, teachers, and their families. It was humanity's proudest achievement, a completely civilian research outpost dedicated to xenobiology, cultural exchange, and peaceful exploration. No weapons, no soldiers, just knowledge and hope. Sarah returned to her lab, where samples from a recent expedition to Europa's subsurface ocean waited for analysis. The microscopic organisms thrived in conditions that would kill most Earth life, and understanding their biology could revolutionize medicine across a dozen species. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not weapons or conquest, but healing and understanding. It hadn't always been this way. 200 years ago, Earth had nearly destroyed itself. The climate wars had raged for 30 years, nation against nation, desperate populations fighting over water, arable land, and survival itself. 3 billion died. Cities burned. Nuclear fire scorched continents. And then, in the aftermath of unimaginable horror, something remarkable happened. Humanity looked at what it had done and said, "Never again." The unification followed. Not a government but a commitment. Earth's nations dissolved their borders, pooled their resources, and dedicated themselves to peace. When humanity reached the stars and encountered the Galactic Council, a loose confederation of 47 species, Earth joined not as conquerors but as mediators. Human diplomats became legendary for their patience. Human doctors healed wounds across a dozen worlds. Human engineers built stations and habitats on barren moons, asking nothing in return. For 2 centuries, humanity had been the galaxy's conscience. Commander James Okafor stood in the operations center of the USS Covenant, Earth's flagship, and wondered if conscience was enough anymore. The Covenant was technically a warship, but only in the loosest sense. Its weapons systems were designed for asteroid deflection and debris clearing. Its armor could withstand micrometeorite impacts, not military-grade plasma cannons. The entire civilian defense fleet, 23 ships in total, existed primarily to rescue stranded vessels and provide disaster relief. Other species called it the humanitarian navy. Some said it with respect. Others, like the Vorthans, said it with contempt. Okafor studied the tactical display, where red markers indicated the Vorthan Empire's latest fleet movements. The Vorthans were relative newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 80 years ago. They'd spent those 8 decades conquering their neighbors, absorbing 14 species into their empire through force or intimidation. Now they turned their attention to the Kepler Belt, where Earth's mining operations extracted rare minerals essential for shipbuilding. "Sir, incoming transmission from Vorthan High Command," Lieutenant Park announced. "Audio only. They're demanding we acknowledge. Put them through." The voice that filled the operations center was harsh, guttural, filtered through a translator that struggled with Vorthan vocal patterns. "Human Vessel Covenant, this is Wardominier Croth 9 of the Vorthan 3rd Fleet. Your species' mining operations in the Kepler Belt encroach upon territory claimed by the Vorthan Empire. You will cease all operations immediately and cede mineral rights or face consequences." Okafor kept his voice level, diplomatic. "Wardominier, the Kepler Belt lies within Sol System, which has been recognized as human sovereign space by the Galactic Council for 173 years. We're happy to discuss resource sharing agreements, but we cannot simply abandon operations that support our civilization. Humans do not dictate terms to Vorthans. You have 3 cycles to comply. Croth 9 out." The transmission ended. Lieutenant Park turned to face Okafor. "Sir, should we alert Earth Command?" "They already know." Okafor studied the display, watching the Vorthan fleet markers pulse like angry red stars. "We've been having this same conversation for 6 months. The Vorthans don't want negotiation. They want submission." What Okafor didn't say, what he couldn't say even to his own crew, was that deep beneath Luna's surface, In bunkers that officially didn't exist, Earth Command had been preparing for this moment since the unification. Project Sentinel. It was humanity's darkest secret and greatest insurance policy. The weapons, ships, and trained soldiers that proved Earth hadn't forgotten how to fight. It had simply chosen not to. Okafor had helped design Sentinel. Every peaceful overture, every diplomatic mission, every act of humanitarian aid had been genuine. But underneath it all, Earth had remembered the lesson of the climate wars. Hope for peace but prepare for the worst. He prayed they'd never need it. On Harmony Station, Sarah Chin finished her analysis and prepared to file her daily report. The Europa organisms showed promising applications for radiation treatment. The alert came without warning. Red lights flooded the laboratory. The emergency klaxon screamed. Sarah's wrist display flashed. Intruder alert. Breach detected. All personnel to emergency shelters. She ran. The corridors were chaos. People scrambling, children crying, adults trying to maintain calm while terror showed in their eyes. Sarah fought upstream against the crowd, heading toward the education wing. Maya, she screamed. Maya. The explosion came from somewhere above. The station shuddered. Gravity flickered. Through the viewport, Sarah saw them. Vorthan warships, their hulls bristling with weapons, surrounding Harmony like wolves around a wounded deer. This is Harmony Station. Someone was broadcasting on all frequencies. We are a civilian research facility. We have no weapons. Please, we have children. The second explosion cut off the transmission. Sarah reached the education wing as the third impact tore through the station's eastern section. The library. Maya had been in the library. The corridor ahead was twisted metal and vacuum. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off the destroyed sections. Sealing off everyone who'd been inside. Sarah pressed her face against the bulkhead, screaming her daughter's name into metal that couldn't hear, wouldn't answer, couldn't bring back the little girl who'd been excited to see her father come home. The Vorthan attack lasted 11 minutes. When the Covenant arrived 40 minutes later, Harmony Station was a debris field. Of the 240 people aboard, 17 survived. Sarah Chin was one of them. Maya was not. 847 dead. Scientists, teachers, engineers, children. People who'd never held a weapon, never threatened anyone, who dedicated their lives to knowledge and peace. The Vorthans transmitted a message to Earth before departing. This is the consequence of defiance. Cede the Kepler belt or more stations will burn. You have 2 cycles to comply. In the emergency council chambers beneath Geneva, Earth's leaders gathered. President Adeyemi stood before the assembly, her face carved from grief and iron determination. Behind her, holographic displays showed the faces of the dead. So many faces. So many children. For 200 years, she said quietly, we have chosen peace. We've turned our weapons into tools. We've extended our hand to every species we've encountered. We've believed that reason and compassion could overcome violence. She paused. The Vorthans have given us their answer. We cannot retaliate, Ambassador Torres protested. The Galactic Council. The Galactic Council will debate while more humans die, General Amara Osei interrupted, stepping forward. She wore the dark uniform of Earth Defense, a branch of service so obscure most people had forgotten it existed. President Adeyemi, it's time. Activate Sentinel. The chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded continued diplomacy. Others called for justice. A few, those who knew what Sentinel truly meant, simply closed their eyes and mourned for what was about to unfold. President Adeyemi raised her hand. Silence fell. 200 years ago we nearly destroyed ourselves, she said. We learned that war solves nothing. But we also learned that peace cannot exist if evil is allowed to murder the innocent without consequence. She turned to General Osei. Activate Project Sentinel. Send a message to every human vessel, every colony, every outpost. Tell them. She paused, her voice breaking. Tell them that Earth remembers. Tell them we're coming home. And tell them we're bringing our children with us. On screens across Earth, Mars, the Belt colonies, and 1,000 human outposts scattered across the stars, the same message appeared. Priority alert, Project Sentinel activated. All defense personnel report immediately. All civilians prepare for mobilization. The long peace has ended. In the depths of Luna, massive doors that hadn't opened in 2 centuries began to move. Hangars flooded with light. Ships that had waited in darkness powered up, their reactors humming with deadly purpose. Soldiers who'd trained in secret, hoping they'd never be needed, reported to their posts. And across the galaxy, species who'd dismissed humans as naive pacifists, who'd mocked Earth's civilian defense fleet, who'd ignored humanity's warnings and overtures, were about to learn why Earth had chosen peace so carefully. They were about to discover what humanity looked like when it chose war. The Reckoning. The memorial broadcasts ran continuously for 72 hours. Every screen on Earth showed the faces: Sarah Chen's daughter Maya, laughing in her last school photo; Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, whose research had saved 3 alien species from extinction; teacher Janet Kim, who'd been reading to her class when the attack came. 847 names, 847 lives, 847 reasons why everything was about to change. Sarah Chen watched from a hospital bed on the Covenant, the burns on her arms bandaged, her heart hollowed out. Commander Okafor sat beside her, silent. What was there to say? Words couldn't fill the void where a daughter used to be. "I'm a xenobiologist," Sarah said finally, her voice hoarse. "I study alien life. I've dedicated my career to understanding them, helping them. And they killed my baby girl." "Not they," Okafor said quietly. "The Vorthons. One species. Not the whole galaxy. Does that matter?" Sarah turned to look at him, her eyes dry. She had no tears left. "I spent my life believing that knowledge and understanding could bridge any gap. That all intelligent life valued peace." She laughed bitterly. "I was wrong." "No," Okafor said. "You were right about most of them. Just not all of them." He stood, moving to the viewport where Harmony's debris still glittered against the stars. "Some species only understand strength. We learned that in our own history. We tried to forget that lesson. The Vorthons just reminded us." Below them, Luna's surface was transforming. From orbit, you could see the massive doors opening, revealing hangars carved from lunar rock. Ships emerged, not the utilitarian vessels of the civilian defense fleet, but sleek warships bristling with weapons that violated a dozen treaties Earth had signed in good faith. The Galactic Council had sent frantic messages demanding Earth cease military preparations. The Vorthons had sent nothing at all, confident that the hairless primates would accept their ultimatum rather than face a real war. Both were about to be disappointed. In the command bunker beneath Geneva, General Amara Osei stood before a holographic display that would have amazed even the most advanced alien civilizations. It showed not just the Sol system, but Vorthon fleet positions across 20 light-years, updated in real time through a network of stealth probes humanity had deployed over decades. "Explain it to me again," President Adeyemi said. "How does a peaceful civilization build an entire secret military?" Osei smiled grimly. "We didn't build it. We prepared for it." She gestured and the display zoomed in on Luna. Project Sentinel began 190 years ago, right after the unification. Our founders said, "We will pursue peace, but we will never be defenseless again." So we designed ships, developed weapons, trained soldiers, all in simulation, all theoretical. The actual hardware only started production 50 years ago, when it became clear some species viewed our pacifism as weakness. And the people? The soldiers? Every human who enlists in any service, medical, exploration, engineering, receives basic combat training. They think it's for emergency situations, hostile environments, piracy. They don't know they're part of the largest reserve military force in the galaxy. Osei's expression hardened. Until now. As of 6 hours ago, we activated the Sleeping Dragon Protocol. 4 million trained personnel are reporting to duty. Another 10 million volunteers have applied for accelerated training. Ambassador Torres, who'd been listening silently, finally spoke. "We'll be condemned by every species in the Council. Everything we've built, our reputation." "Our reputation didn't save Harmony Station," Osei cut him off. "Our reputation didn't protect those children. The galaxy respected us as diplomats and healers. Now they'll respect us for a different reason." "Or fear us," Torres said quietly. "Good," Osei replied. "Fear prevents war. Respect didn't." The first deployment of Project Sentinel forces happened 8 hours later. 3 stealth carriers, the Retribution, the Remembrance, and the Reckoning, slipped out of lunar orbit using drives so quiet they barely registered on conventional sensors. Each carried 40 fighter craft, 4 gunships, and enough firepower to level a small moon. Their target, a Vorthon supply convoy heading toward the Kepler belt, escorted by 2 destroyers. Commander Elena Vasquez led the strike from Retribution's bridge. She'd spent 15 years as a civilian pilot, transporting medical supplies and evacuating colonies. Before that, she trained for this exact moment, hoping it would never come. "All wings check in," she ordered. "Dragon wing standing by." Phoenix wing ready? Valkyrie wing weapons hot. Vasquez studied the tactical display. The Vorthan convoy moved through space with arrogant confidence, their escorts barely maintaining sensor sweeps. Why would they? Humans didn't attack. Humans nagutiata. Humans ran. All ships, this is retribution actual, Vasquez said. Remember harmony. Remember the children. Make every shot count. Execute attack pattern Sentinel-1. Engage. The stealth fighters dropped their camouflage and struck like vengeful ghosts. Railgun rounds, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, punched through the lead destroyer's shields before they could even activate. Missile salvos targeted the convoy supply ships, each warhead guided by AI systems that Earth had quietly developed while the galaxy thought humans were too ethical for war. The Vorthan escorts tried to respond, their plasma batteries tracking human fighters that danced through space with precision only centuries of secret training could produce. But it was too late. The convoy was burning. The destroyers were crippled. Retribution to all wings, Vasquez ordered. Leave one supply ship intact. We want survivors. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it was done, the Vorthan convoy was debris except for a single damaged freighter. Vasquez transmitted on all frequencies. Vorthan vessel, this is the UESS Retribution of Earth Defense Forces. You will stand down and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction. The response came in broken English. Humans? You have warships? We have a civilization worth defending, Vasquez replied coldly. Tell your commanders, for every human killed at Harmony Station, we will exact a price they cannot imagine. This is just the beginning. She cut the transmission and looked at her crew. Secure that freighter. I want their communications logs, navigation data, everything. Earth Command needs to know where every Vorthan ship is hiding. News of the engagement spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Alien ambassadors demanded explanations. How did peaceful Earth suddenly have a military fleet? Where did these weapons come from? What else were the humans hiding? President Adeyemi addressed the council via hologram, her image projected to their chambers on the neutral station at Andromeda's gate. For 2 centuries we have pursued peace, she said. We have helped where we could, mediated where we must, and turned away from violence even when provoked. We believed the galaxy was better than its worst impulses. She paused. The Vorthan Empire has proven us wrong. They attacked a civilian station. They murdered children. They did this believing humanity would accept it, would negotiate, would submit rather than fight. The Council condemns the attack on Harmony Station, Ambassador Thexin of the Crystalline Collective said, his voice resonating through his silicon matrix body. But Earth's response violates the non-aggression accords. You cannot. We can, Adeyemi interrupted. And we will. The accords protect those who respect them. The Vorthans forfeited that protection when they opened fire on unarmed civilians. We will seek justice for our dead. We will protect our people. And we will not apologize for surviving. The transmission ended before the Council could respond. In the Vorthan Empire's capital world of Kraxthor, War Dominier Croth 9 received reports of the convoy's destruction with disbelief. Humans attacking? Impossible. He'd studied Earth's history carefully. They were pacifists, weakened by centuries of peace, their military atrophied and useless. Assemble the 19th Battle Group, he ordered his subordinates. 3 carriers, 10 destroyers, 50 gunships. We will travel to the Sol system and finish what Harmony Station began. The humans need a stronger lesson. His tactical officer hesitated. War Dominier, perhaps we should assess their capabilities more carefully. The convoy was destroyed in minutes. By surprise and cowardice. Croth 9 roared. Stealth attacks, ambush tactics. This is not strength, it is desperation. When we meet them in open battle, their weakness will be revealed. Prepare the fleet. We depart in 2 cycles. What Croth 9 didn't know was that human intelligence had already intercepted his orders. Earth Command knew the 19th Battle Group was coming. They knew its composition, its route, its estimated arrival time. And they were preparing a welcome. The Battle of Titan's Shadow was where Earth's true capabilities revealed themselves. General Osei deployed the full weight of Project Sentinel, 15 carriers, 30 destroyers, hundreds of fighters, all coordinated through quantum-linked tactical networks that processed battlefield data faster than any organic mind could follow. Commander Okafor commanded the fleet from the UESS Covenant, now refitted with weapons that transformed it from symbolic flagship to deadly combatant. Around him, ships that had spent decades on humanitarian missions now flew in combat formation, their crews grim-faced but determined. Vorthan fleet entering Neptune orbit, Lieutenant Park reported. 19 capital ships detected. They're not even attempting stealth. They don't think they need to, Okafor said. They still believe we're civilians playing at war. Show them otherwise. All ships, execute formation harmony. The name was deliberate. Every human in the fleet knew what it meant. The human ships spread out in a defensive sphere around Titan, Saturn's largest moon. The Vorthan fleet approached in standard Imperial formation, carriers at the center, destroyers forming a protective wall, gunships ready to swarm any enemy foolish enough to close distance. Croth 9 observed the human formation with satisfaction. They hide behind a moon like frightened prey. All ships advance. Teach these primitives the cost of resistance. The Vorthans advanced. The humans waited. Then at 5 million kilometers, Earth's ships opened fire. What the Vorthans had dismissed as civilian vessels revealed weapons that defied conventional understanding. Railguns firing rounds at percentages of light speed. Missile swarms guided by quantum computing. Directed energy weapons that could track multiple targets simultaneously. And most terrifying of all, nanite warheads that ate through shields like acid through paper. The Vorthan formation shattered. Their shields, designed to withstand conventional plasma weapons, failed against kinetic rounds traveling at unprecedented velocities. Their point defense systems, programmed for standard missile patterns, couldn't track projectiles that adjusted course millions of times per second. All ships break formation. Croth 9 screamed. Engage at close range. The Vorthan gunships accelerated, attempting to use superior numbers to overwhelm the human fleet. But Earth's fighters met them in a knife fight that showcased 2 centuries of secret training. Human pilots flew with impossible precision, their reflexes augmented by neural interfaces that the Galactic Council had banned decades ago. Earth had signed that ban. Earth had followed that ban. Right up until they hadn't. Aboard the Covenant, Okafor watched the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. Target their carriers. Disable propulsion and communications. I want prisoners who can report back what happened here. Sir, Park said hesitantly, the Galactic Council laws regarding prisoner treatment will be followed to the letter, Okafor finished. We're not barbarians, Lieutenant. We're just not victims anymore. The battle lasted 28 minutes. When it ended, the Vorthan 19th Battle Group was destroyed. 3 carriers drifted dead in space. Most destroyers were expanding debris clouds. The survivors, roughly 40% of the original force, retreated at maximum speed. Okafor opened a general transmission. Vorthan forces, this is Commander James Okafor of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You came to Sol System expecting easy prey. You forgot that humanity survived a war that nearly destroyed our entire species. We learned mercy from that horror. But we also learned how to fight. He paused. Go home. Tell your war dominiers what you saw here. Tell them that Earth is no longer asking for peace. We're enforcing it. And the next fleet you send will meet the same fate. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. Medical teams to the disabled carriers. Prisoners will be treated with respect and dignity. Engineering teams prepare salvage operations. Intelligence wants to examine their technology. Around the fleet, weary but victorious, human crews began the grim work of battlefield cleanup. They'd won. They'd proven Earth could defend itself. But Okafor felt no triumph, only a deep, bone-weary sadness. Because somewhere among the wreckage, among the cooling hull fragments and scattered debris, were Vorthan bodies, soldiers following orders, perhaps some who disagreed with the attack on Harmony but fought anyway because that's what soldiers do. War had no winners. Only survivors and the dead. In the hospital ship Mercy, Sarah Chen worked alongside other doctors treating wounded from both sides. Her hands moved automatically, applying nanite patches to burns, stabilizing trauma victims, saving lives without seeing faces or species. A young Vorthan soldier, barely more than a hatchling, looked up at her with fear and confusion. Why? He croaked in broken English. Why help, enemy? Sarah's hands paused for just a moment. She thought of Maya, of her daughter's laughter, of all the things she would never see or do or become. Then she thought of this child soldier, conscripted into a war he probably didn't understand, fighting for an empire that viewed its own people as expendable. Because, she said quietly, finishing the medical patch, someone has to remember what we're fighting for. We're not fighting to kill Vorthans. We're fighting so no more children, human or alien, die in pointless wars. The soldier didn't understand. but someday maybe his species would. The message from Commander Okafor echoed across the galaxy. We wanted peace. You gave us war. Now you'll learn why we chose peace. The galaxy was learning. And Earth was just getting started. The New Dawn. The Vorthan Empire's response to the Battle of Titan's Shadow was exactly what Earth Command had anticipated. Overwhelming force driven by wounded pride. War Council Supreme convened on Kraxthor and made their decision unanimous. No more surgical strikes. No more testing human resolve. The entire Third Armada, 200 warships representing the backbone of Vorthan military might, would descend upon Sol System and crush the upstart species that dared challenge Imperial supremacy. They destroyed one battle group. Supreme War Domineer Zexthul addressed his commanders. They used surprise, deception, and weapons we did not anticipate. These advantages are now nullified. We know their capabilities. We outnumber their entire fleet 4-1. When we strike, Earth will burn. The Third Armada would arrive at Sol System in 9 cycles. It was more than enough time for humanity to evacuate the outer colonies, to pull back defenses, to sue for peace on whatever terms the Vorthans offered. Instead, Earth prepared to make its final stand. It's insane, Ambassador Torres argued in the Emergency Council session. 200 ships, General. We've deployed everything Sentinel had, barely 60 capital vessels. Even with our technological advantages, the mathematics are impossible. General Osei studied the holographic display showing Vorthan fleet positions. Torres was right about the numbers. But numbers told only part of the story. The Vorthans are making a mistake, she said calmly. They're committing their entire armada to a single decisive battle. They want to crush us so thoroughly that no other species will ever dare challenge them again. And we're giving them exactly what they want, Torres said bitterly. No, President Adeyemi said, entering the chamber. We're giving them a choice. A real choice, maybe the first one they've had in their entire history of conquest. She turned to Osei. How long until the civilian evacuations are complete? Mars and Luna colonies will be empty in 72 hours. The belt stations are already evacuated. We're moving everyone to the deep space habitats beyond the Kuiper belt. And if we lose? Osei met her gaze steadily. Then the evacuation becomes a diaspora. Humanity survives, scattered but alive, to rebuild wherever we can. But we won't lose, Madam President. Your confidence is noted, General. I hope it's justified. In the Covenant's ready room, Commander Okafor briefed his fleet commanders via holographic conference. 30 captains, each commanding a warship that represented humanity's desperate gamble, listened as he outlined the battle plan. The Vorthans expect a defensive battle, Okafor explained. They'll try to overwhelm our positions with superior numbers, believing we'll fortify around Earth or Mars. Instead, we're going to meet them at the edge of the system, near Neptune's orbit. We'll establish the sole defense line here. He highlighted a region of space where Neptune's gravity well could be exploited tactically. Captain Zhang of the destroyer Defiant raised a question. Sir, won't that leave the inner system exposed if we're pushed back? We won't be pushed back, Okafor said quietly. Because we're not fighting a defensive battle. We're fighting an extinction battle. If the Vorthans break through, there is no fallback position. Earth Command has made this clear. We win at Neptune or we don't win at all. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Several captains exchanged glances, but none protested. They'd all seen the memorial broadcasts. They'd all lost friends or family at Harmony Station. This wasn't just military strategy, it was personal. There is one additional element, Okafor continued. Dr. Sarah Chin has developed a weapon based on her xenobiology research. I'll let her explain. Sarah's hologram appeared beside Okafor's. She looked different than she had a month ago. Thinner, harder, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights spent transforming medical science into instruments of war. The Vorthans use an integrated AI system to coordinate fleet operations, Sarah explained, her voice clinical. I've developed a viral code, a digital organism, essentially, that exploits weaknesses in their neuroquantum interface. Once introduced to their network, it will cascade through their entire fleet, disrupting communications and targeting systems. A virus, Captain Rodriguez of the carrier Vengeance said. How do we deliver it? That's the difficult part, Sarah admitted. We need direct access to their flagship's main computer core, which means someone has to get close enough to upload it manually. The implications were clear. It was a suicide mission. I'll do it, Okafor said immediately. No, General Osei's voice came through the channel. Your fleet commander. We need you coordinating the battle. I've already selected a team for this. She paused. They're all volunteers. They all lost someone at Harmony. No one asked for names. It seemed disrespectful somehow, as if speaking their identities aloud would make their sacrifice more real, more final. The 9 cycles passed in a blur of preparation. Human ships took up positions along the Sol defense line, arrayed in a formation that General Osei had personally designed. It looked chaotic to conventional military theory, ships scattered across millions of cubic kilometers with seemingly random spacing. But each position had been calculated with perfect precision, creating overlapping fields of fire and tactical flexibility that would confound enemy targeting. On Earth, billions watched the sky and waited. Cities fell quiet. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. In thousands of homes, families gathered around the memorial walls where holographic images of Harmony's dead smiled down, frozen in happier times. Maya Chen's face smiled from Sarah's personal memorial, her last school photo showing gap-toothed joy. Sarah touched the image gently before leaving for the Covenant's medical bay, where she would coordinate trauma response during the battle. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, baby," she whispered. "But I can protect other children. I can make sure your death meant something." The Vorthan Third Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system with the confidence of an empire that had never known defeat. 200 warships materialized in perfect formation, a wall of destruction that stretched across space like the fist of an angry god. Supreme War Dominier Zexthol surveyed the human defensive positions with satisfaction. They spread themselves thin, trying to cover too much space. Typical amateur tactics. All ships, advance in standard Imperial formation. We will roll over them like a wave over sand. The Vorthan fleet advanced. The Sol defense line waited. At 5 million kilometers, both sides opened fire. Space became chaos. Railgun rounds crossed the void at relativistic speeds. Missile swarms filled the darkness like schools of mechanical piranha. Energy weapons painted the night with beams of coherent destruction. Ships maneuvered in three-dimensional ballet, each movement calculated by AI systems pushing the limits of physics and reaction time. The Vorthans had numbers. But humanity had desperation, innovation, and 2 centuries of pent-up preparation exploding into focused violence. All wings execute pattern Harmony 2. Okafor commanded from the Covenant's bridge. Target their carrier groups. Disable, don't destroy, we want their command structure intact for the virus deployment. Human fighters swarmed through Vorthan formations like angry hornets, their pilots flying with augmented reflexes that bordered on precognition. Destroyers coordinated their fire with inhuman precision, each railgun volley calculated to arrive simultaneously from multiple vectors, overwhelming shields through sheer kinetic shock. And the nanite warheads, Earth's most controversial weapon, did their terrible work. Each detonation released billions of microscopic machines programmed to disassemble Vorthan armor at the molecular level. Shields stopped energy. Armor stopped kinetics. But nothing stopped the nanites. The Vorthan formation wavered. Ships that had dominated a dozen species found themselves outmaneuvered by an opponent they dismissed as primitive. But sheer numbers began to tell. For every Vorthan ship disabled, Earth lost 1 destroyed. The mathematics were grinding and inevitable. Covenant taking fire. Lieutenant Park reported. Forward shields at 60%. Maintain position, Okafor ordered. All ships hold the line. We just need to last long enough. Sir. Park interrupted. The insertion team has breached the Vorthan flagship. On the bridge of the Vorthan flagship Eternal Conquest, Supreme War Dominier Zexthol received impossible reports. Human commandos, 4 soldiers in powered armor, had somehow bypassed his ship's defenses and were fighting their way toward the computer core. How? He roared at his security chief. How did they board us? Unknown, Supreme. They appear to have used some form of personal teleportation. Impossible. No species has mastered quantum transportation. But impossible or not, it was happening. The human soldiers moved through his ship like ghosts, their weapons cutting through Vorthan defenders with brutal efficiency. And now they'd reached the core. Lieutenant Sarah Miller, no relation to the doctor, just another human who'd lost family at Harmony, uploaded Dr. Chen's viral code while her 3 teammates held off Vorthan security forces. The upload bar crawled upward, 40%, 60%, 80%. A plasma bolt caught her shoulder. Pain exploded. The world narrowed to the upload bar and her fingers on the keyboard. 95%. 98%. For Harmony, she whispered. For the children. 100%. The virus activated. Across the Vorthan fleet, 200 ships simultaneously went dark. Communication systems failed. Targeting computers crashed. AI coordination collapsed into chaos. Ships that had operated as a unified organism suddenly became 200 independent vessels, each blind to the other's positions and intentions. Now, Okafor commanded. All ships full offensive. Target their command vessels. The sole defense line surged forward. Human ships that had been fighting a desperate defensive battle transformed into hunting predators. They knew exactly which ships to target, which systems to disable, how to maximize confusion and minimize casualties. Because Earth hadn't just been fighting to win. They'd been fighting to end this war completely. The Battle of Neptune's Gate, as history would call it, lasted 6 hours. When the firing finally stopped, the Vorthan Third Armada was destroyed as a fighting force. 20 ships remained capable of faster-than-light travel, enough to limp home with the survivors. The rest were disabled, drifting, their crews awaiting rescue or death. And then Supreme War Domineer Zexthul, pulled from the wreckage of his flagship by human rescue teams, found himself standing on the bridge of the USS Covenant, facing Commander James Okafor. "What are you?" Zexthul demanded, his translator struggling with the Vorthan expression for existential confusion. "Your species was weak. Pacifist. We studied your history. You should not have been able to fight." Okafor interrupted. "To win." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something cold and terrible. "You made the same mistake every bully in history has made. You confused mercy for weakness. You thought because we chose peace we had forgotten how to choose war." He gestured to the view screen, where disabled Vorthan ships floated among the wreckage. "We are the species that nearly destroyed itself learning how to fight. We are the species that looked at what we had done and said, 'Never again.' We spent 200 years building a civilization dedicated to peace, healing, and understanding." His voice hardened. "And you murdered our children." Zexthul said nothing. What could he say? "You have a choice now," Okafor continued. "Your empire can continue this war. You can send more fleets, kill more humans, and we will destroy every single one. We have barely begun to show you what we're capable of. Or," he paused, "or you can choose what we chose. You can say, 'Enough.'" "The Vorthan Empire does not surrender," Zexthul said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then the Vorthan Empire will cease to exist," Okafor replied. "Not because we'll exterminate you, we're not monsters. But because we'll disable every warship you send until you have nothing left but the choice we gave you in the first place. Peace or extinction." He turned away, signaling guards to remove the War Domineer. "Take him to comfortable quarters. Medical treatment for all prisoners. And get me a line to Earth Command. It's time to talk to the Galactic Council." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 cycles after the Battle of Neptune's Gate. Representatives from 47 species gathered at Andromeda's Gate to witness what many assumed would be Earth's formal censure or expulsion for violating the non-aggression accords. Instead, they watched as President Adeyemi presented evidence of Vorthan war crimes across 14 species. They listened to testimony from prisoners who described imperial conquest policies. They saw data recovered from Vorthan computers showing systematic planning for genocide. "The Vorthan Empire attacked us believing we would not fight back," Adeyemi concluded. "They were right about what we wanted. They were wrong about what we would do when given no choice. Earth did not start this war. But we will finish it. Not through conquest or revenge, but by ensuring the Vorthans, and every other species watching, understand that pacifism and weakness are not the same thing." "What are you proposing?" Ambassador Thexan asked. "A new accord," Adeyemi said. "The Vorthans will dismantle their military to defensive forces only. They will allow council inspections. They will pay reparations to the species they've conquered. In exchange, Earth will help them rebuild. We'll share medical technology, agricultural advances, the same knowledge we've always offered freely. And if they refuse?" Adeyemi's expression hardened. "Then Earth will enforce these terms. We tried being the galaxy's conscience. If that's not enough, we'll be its protector. Whether you like it or not." The vote was close, but it passed. The Vorthan Empire, broken and humiliated, accepted the terms. They had no choice. Earth had proven it could defend itself. More terrifying, Earth had proven it could project force anywhere in the galaxy. The long peace was over. But something new was beginning. 5 years later, Sarah Chin stood at the dedication ceremony for New Harmony Station. Built in the same orbit where its predecessor had died, the new station was larger, more advanced, and heavily armed. It was both research facility and fortress. A statement that humanity would never again choose between knowledge and survival. Maya's name was engraved on the memorial wall, along with every other victim. Families came to touch the names, to remember, to ensure that the children who died in violence were honored by the peace their deaths had purchased. A young woman approached Sarah. She recognized her as Lieutenant Sarah Miller, who'd survived uploading the viral code despite wounds that should have been fatal. The military promoted her and offered a command position. She'd accepted. "Dr. Chin," Miller said, "I wanted to thank you. Your weapons saved thousands of lives that day." Sarah looked at her hands, remembering how they'd healed and killed, saved and destroyed. "I'm not sure that's something to be proud of." "Maybe not proud," Miller agreed, "but grateful. My sister was on Harmony. She was 6. Because of what you created, fewer families had to feel what we felt." They stood together in silence, watching as children, human and alien both, ran laughing through the station's corridors. The school was in session. Research continued. Life persisted. Above them, a new Earth Defense Force patrol passed by, ships that wore their weapons openly now, no longer hidden in secret bunkers. The galaxy knew what humanity could do. More importantly, they knew what humanity would do: fight when pushed, protect the innocent, enforce peace when diplomacy failed. It wasn't the future Earth had wanted, but it was the future Earth had chosen when given no alternative. Commander Okafor, promoted to Admiral after the war, sometimes visited the Harmony Memorial. He would stand before the wall of names and wonder if they'd done the right thing. If Maya Chin and the others would have wanted humanity to transform from healers to warriors, even reluctant ones. But then he'd remember the faces of the children playing in New Harmony's corridors, alive because Earth had finally remembered that sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be willing to fight for it. "We wanted peace," he would whisper to the names on the wall. "We really did. But you deserve justice. And now, maybe, other children won't have to die for the galaxy to understand that some lines cannot be crossed." The long peace had ended. But perhaps something better had begun. A galaxy where peace existed not because everyone was good, but because everyone understood the cost of being evil. Where humanity stood not as naive diplomats, but as guardians who preferred mercy but possessed the strength to enforce justice. Earth had awakened. And the galaxy would never forget it.